Thursday, February 19th, where the Board of Finance is going to hear the Board of Education's proposed budget. So do I have any comments or questions from the Board of Finance before we turn the floor over to you guys? All right, the floor is yours.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. I have some opening remarks before Dr. Butaia starts. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to engage with you this evening in this dialogue as we present the Board of Education budget request for your consideration. Our partnership and the partnership of other city boards is an important part of the process as we discuss the needs of our young people and how our budget supports them. For some quick background, we begin our formal budget work in the fall by adopting priorities and assumptions that guide the superintendent in the development of her budget, which she presents to us in January. We then discuss the proposal during a series of workshops before adopting our budget. Throughout the year during our public meetings, we also review monthly and quarterly budget reports, current programming, the district's needs, and potential new initiatives. And the final result is this comprehensive document that you have in front of you, which has been, by that time, scrutinized by 3 boards, the Board of Education, Board of Finance, and the Board of Aldermen. So this budget reflects our commitment to provide exceptional and relevant educational opportunities for every student while maintaining fiscal responsibility in today's economy. We recognize the challenging position you face in balancing the needs of all city departments, and we work with intention to deliver a fiscally responsible request that aligns with our educational priorities and honors students and staff by maintaining our commitment to core programming. We are proposing only modest targeted system improvements, enhancing school security by adding school security officers to elementary schools and the academy, restarting an after-school program at the high school to provide additional academic support, and investing in additional literacy resources for the mandated Right to Read program. Like other districts, we continue to face competing pressures from student needs and inflationary forces. The primary drivers of this budget request includes negotiated salary increases for dedicated staff, rising costs for retiree benefits, increases in special education costs, and rising expenses for utilities and other contracted services. Together, these contractual costs account for the vast majority of the budget growth as outlined in the superintendent's summary. Less than $100,000 of the total increase is attributed to costs outside of those 4 areas. To help mitigate rising costs, it's important to note the nearly $1.75 million in savings, efficiencies, and deferments identified by administration. These were difficult recommendations to slow or delay some critical needs, including reduced or eliminated funding for musical instruments, updated student desks and chairs, computer equipment, and instructional and non-instructional supplies. I should also note that this budget does not fully address our growing facilities and grounds needs, an intentional decision as we approach completion of our long-range facilities master plan later this spring. For some good news, the investments of past budgets are paying off. Last year, 7 of our elementary schools were named schools of distinction by the State Department of Education, and both high schools received gold level designation on the Advanced Placement Honor Roll. We've seen double-digit increases in state assessment scores over the past 2 years, and these accomplishments reflect the dedication of our educators, the resilience of our students, and the support of our families, our communities, and our city leaders such as yourselves. I think we can all agree that a great school system benefits everyone, our young people, our businesses, and the greater community. And it is my hope we can collectively convey the message that Milford values education by supporting our progress and our commitment to continuous improvement and excellence, ensuring that our students receive the high-quality education they deserve, while honoring our shared responsibility to the taxpayers of this community. We believe this budget accomplishes that. We appreciate your thoughtful consideration of this request, and Dr. Butaia will share some details now, and then we welcome your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lennon. Thank you, members of this board. I am grateful to be before you again to talk about the great accomplishments, hopes, and dreams we have for our young people and our staff in Milford Public Schools. What we'll do is just go through a few slides. I'll dig deep into a couple of the drivers and then turn it back over to you so that you can ask us any clarifying questions, okay? So I will start by just pointing out that we always start with pictures of kids on the front slide, and It's a challenge every year to figure out, what pictures do we pick, and one year we focused on little people, like the littlest people, 3 and 4-year-olds, but not only have we had a banner year academically, but we've had a banner year athletically. I think it's worth mentioning that here are some of our state champions and our highly ranked athletes on this slide. So we have a lot to celebrate in so many areas, including the athletics. So I do want to remind you that we don't just pick our hopes and dreams out of the air year to year. They're intentional, they're strategic, and there are 4 key bumpers, if you will, that keep us aligned with where we want to be for the future for our young people. And just high-level overview, we have a vision of the learner, which outlines what do we want for every single student every day, including by the time they cross the graduation stage. We base all of our work on relationships, and we base that in some of the research from the Search Institute, and we have a developmental relationships framework that helps guide our work in encouraging students, knowing that they are cared for and they belong, but also expanding possibilities and growing them. We have defined how we teach in every single classroom through the model of high-quality instruction. That's best summarized as saying, these are the best practices that research yields. We don't want teachers just to stand and deliver and kids just through osmosis absorb knowledge, but through high-quality instructional practices, students and teachers engage with one another around content. That's our H2I model. And finally, we believe that every child should feel a place of belonging here in Milford Public Schools. Belonging academically, socially, emotionally, and as part of a community, and therefore we have an equity framework that ensures kids plug in a very intentional way. As Ms. Glennon already mentioned, the Board of Education considers and adopts budget priorities and assumptions in October of every year. I will not read most of these slides to you as they are in print before you, but in a high-level overview, the priorities for the 26-27 budget included focusing on our instructional programs in many of the areas, including the electives, focusing on career pathways for our young people, and one day we'd like to get to expanding those even further than the 8 pathways that we have already established for our high schoolers. We want to also provide comprehensive systems of support, particularly in the areas of social and emotional well-being, because we are seeing students really struggling more and more with mental health issues and issues of regulating, particularly in our younger age. The priority of professional learning and ensuring that we continue to invest in the #1 resource that we have, and that is our teachers. Continuing to honor our class sizes, continuing to focus on the appropriate physical spaces so that we can demonstrate and give experiences in 21st century learning as they will experience those in the workforce, and then also ensuring that we support our extracurricular activities and athletics. The next 4 slides are a summary of our assumptions. A good way to say what an assumption is to sort of our forecast. What are the financial challenges that we are facing as we develop a budget that in some cases it won't be implemented for 9 months and in some cases over a year. So we are developing a budget from October through December, comes before the board in January, and it won't actually be implemented or utilized for another year. So we do the best we can with the crystal ball that we have around forecasting what those financial challenges would be. So you will notice that some of those challenges include the rising cost of goods, just like you're facing at home. For us to buy just some basic items, we're facing those items being exponentially higher like we are at home. We are also faced with every headline we read each morning with the threat of losing state and federal funding. So we have some grants. In fact, the governor has since published his budget since we wrote this, and the Department of Education isn't getting any more, and in some cases, we potentially could be getting less, particularly if we're identified as one of those districts that would be quote-unquote overfunded. But we could talk a little bit about that in a little bit. We make assumptions based on the labor market. We make assumptions based on renegotiated contracts. We make assumptions based on what we believe health insurance would be rising for particularly retirees on our side of the budget. We make assumptions based on what our needs will be in the future for student safety. We take a look and forecast unanticipated costs, particularly in the world of special education, tuition and transportation. We are a victim to the exponential costs in that area like the rest of the state and the nation. And I know that the state of Connecticut is trying to get some regulations around that, but that won't be for a long time coming. We also are looking at implementation of contracts that are in place, such as the transportation contract. Just trying to do some summary statements here. We are trying to keep up with technology changes and the replacement of the devices as they age out. We continue to look at the increase in utility costs, which Mr. Brennan is prepared to talk a little bit about this evening if you have questions in those areas. Our maintenance projects are going up, and simply the cost of maintaining our aging units in buildings that are 75 years old. We are faced with a challenge of ensuring that we are complying with new legislative requirements like the HVAC requirement and the indoor air quality requirements. In so many cases, we have unfunded mandates that continue to come down the pipe. And of course, all the time, we are looking for efficiencies, which I will be talking about in a little bit. So for those of you who don't know my budget process, it is a zero-based budgeting process, so we roll all of our accounts back to zero. We are not just looking at where we ended last year and now look at what else do we need. Actually, I kid with our team, they don't think it's funny though, when I say the budget process is not actually a process of engaging in addition. We are engaging in subtraction. So we look for efficiencies to the degree possible, but primarily we're asking ourselves, what are the mission, vision, and goals of our system? What are the priorities? What are the priorities based on student and staff needs that are in front of us? Alongside that, we engage in data analysis based on the academic reports that we receive from our young people and ask ourselves, what do they need now? And always give ourselves permission to revise that plan based on the kids that are in front of us. These processes start from the classroom level, mostly through coaches, teacher leaders, department heads, curriculum leaders, working with principals. All those individual teachers are represented through those positions. Principals then make recommendations to me, department supervisors make recommendations to Mr. Altieri, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Zenowitz, Ms. Capazna, Mr. Giancola, other members of our cabinet, and all of those come to the table. If we didn't do our work, we would be bringing you like a 25% increase, please know. That is what we want from our teams though. We want our teams to dream and to not be afraid to ask for the resources and support that they need. Then we go through the very difficult task of rolling back based on maybe not now, but maybe later. And in some cases, we simply just say no. It's not the right priority or right alignment to our priorities. So please know that we have engaged in a very long, detailed, we put our eyes on every single line item. And we even ask for backup for everything that is asked for. So we ask for our folks to go and get quotes, even as simple as when you want to buy a table and chair. We want to know what tables and chairs you're buying and attach the vendor and how much the quote is. So we are that detailed in our budget development. So let's start off with some accomplishments. As Ms. Glennon already stole my thunder, I will say it has been a banner year for Millville Public Schools. And actually, we should start with some thanks to the bodies in our community that support our dreams and hopes for our children and support budgets. Because we know that budgets provide for quality resources like teachers and like technology, just to name two examples. But in the last 2 years, we have experienced double-digit growth in our academic results. And while it represents 7 schools of distinction, please know that the year before, Orange Avenue was identified as a school of distinction. So I don't want to leave any of our accomplishments out. And also know that Orchard Hills was identified as one of the top 10% of schools in the state of Connecticut, based on their accountability index. So kudos to our young people and our teachers and staff at all of our elementary schools. When it comes to innovation and improvement, particularly when you're working with little human beings, it doesn't happen in a linear way. You can't say, I'm gonna do X and we're gonna do Y and it's gonna equal improvement, ta-da! It is much more organic and complicated than that. And I think what we see here is the results of 7 years of hard work, at least since I've been here, with some identified goals and intended strategies put in place. Not only that, but we had some incredible success in the area of advanced placement. We have year after year, and by the way, we have an open access to AP. We don't make kids jump through hoops to get in. If a child wants to try an AP class, they do. And that speaks volumes, since we do have so many AP students with scholars, AP scholars with honors and distinction, and of course, as Ms. Glennon mentioned, both of our high schools, for the first time, have been given the gold distinction for not just participation, but also for achievement, which is what they scored on the AP test. And I will say one more thing. I mentioned the athletics, I mentioned the academics, but I would be remiss if I don't mention that for the 5th year in a row, we were identified as one of the top cities that supports the music education. And so that's a 5 year in a row honor. Our students do very well in the arts. They engage and are successful in state and national competition in both music and art. So I don't want to leave any of our talented students out in the celebration. So to me, that feels like in the business world, return on investment. That feels like, so we're investing these dollars and resources, what are we getting back? And that's only one, obviously, example. Academic progress and achievement is one quote-unquote return on investment. So looking forward for 26-27, we had to make some very difficult decisions so that we could continue to invest in our young people. And therefore, what you find before you is a proposed budget from the Board of Education of $118,952,091, which is a 4.328% increase year over year. So let's get into some of the drivers. The first primary driver is that of salaries and benefits. I like to call our business a human capital driven organization. About 77% of our budget before you is on salaries and benefits. In order for us to deliver a service, it is through human beings. If kids need more support in the area of credit recovery, let's say, or more time to achieve credits in high school, what we usually recommend is some after school time or maybe summer school, and that's delivered through people. So we wouldn't necessarily be buying a product, we would be paying teachers to do more, to provide more services to our kids. Hence, my lens is concluding that we are a human capital organization. We provide services through people and we serve people. You will see that 3.784% of the increase is on salaries and benefits. In the area of special education, we are looking at an increase in this proposed budget of $1.3 million almost, and about $243,000 in transportation and contracted services. That's the increase year over year. Our retiree health insurance, all health insurance I think is a little out of control, including that for retirees. And we have worked to find the best and lowest number there, but it did come in at an additional $839,000. And then in the world of utilities and contracted services, we're looking at an increase of almost $250,000 in total. So I wish that there was more in the world of academics and programming that we were proposing as quote unquote new. But we, in light of our big ask in the area of safety and security, limited our new stuff. Actually, the high school after school program isn't necessarily new. It is it's a comeback. During COVID, we were able to use ARPA funds to extend the learning day for high schoolers. We've been asked for, this is the third year, to bring that back since the ARPA funds were expired. We did not continue the after-school support, and students and teachers and administrators alike have all asked for extended learning time for our young people, and we're hoping to bring that back at both of our high schools. So that would extend the learning day on certain days, allow students to either extend learning time because they need more time, or recover some learning in the area of recovery for credit. So this is helping our kids stay on track for graduation in some cases. This is, in some cases, deepening learning so that they don't fall behind. And then the other area, we continue to invest in resources in literacy. If you followed along in education, literacy legislation has become much more compliance-based. This continues to support the elementary and secondary literacy curriculum areas. We know we have work to do in the middle schools in particular. We believe that providing these two literacy resources will be helpful in both elementary and particularly middle. So let's talk a little bit about the school security officers, and I have additional slides in this presentation on that because Mr. Nielsen made himself available back in January when the Board of Ed had additional questions. So I chose to take some of his presentation and throw it into our budget. Because I heard by a little bird that you guys might be interested in this dialogue. So I thought I'd just provide some information and then we could talk some more about it. So we are proposing armed security officers as allowed through state legislation at the 8 elementary schools and the academy. So let's talk a little bit about what that would look like. So if you follow along the history of Milford for a long time now, we've been doing a great job in the area of safety security. We felt like we're in some cases cutting edge in that area. We have an incredible director for safety and security, Mr. Nielsen, who is a former police officer here in Milford, knows our city, knows our schools, knows our people. And we have built what we like to call a layered approach to safety and security. So with every layer, we believe we get stronger and safer, stronger and safer. And as you know, with any safety security measure, there are vulnerabilities, hence the layered approach. So cameras alone don't do it. Greeters alone don't do it. Hardened vestibules alone don't do it. But when you put those things together, layer by layer, it makes you stronger and safer. And that is the theory behind that approach. What we believe, and we committed to the board last year, that we would, since we felt like we were in a good place in the area of safety and security, that we would take sort of like an R&D year, which we did since the last time we talked about this, a little over a year ago. And we came to some conclusions that we needed an additional layers of security. And the vulnerability that we identified was at the elementary level and the academy, particularly in the area of not having someone who is armed, such as we do at the middle and high school. So if you don't know, we have a little different than this. We have a school resource officer who is a police officer, fully uniformed, on the force, employed by the police department. We have one at each middle and each high school. So why are we considering armed security officers at the elementary? One, we are experiencing an increased need to manage threatening situations. Actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to take a moment to read to you just some excerpts from a history of threatening situations. And sometimes if you're not working in the school system, you may not keep track of the things that are happening, right? You guys are living life, but we're living it every day. And to me, in my role as superintendent, I am just, I have a front row seat to the increase of threats and swatting and possible violence, mostly from external sources. And so when I took a look back a few years, particularly at the time when I was struck with, oh my God, I think we have to do something. I looked back at just some. This is not cumulative, it is not comprehensive review. In December of 2021, we notified the community, actually this letter is from Chief Mello and myself both, we did a joint letter, that there was a nationwide TikTok trend The post refers to a threat to school safety referencing gun violence in schools on a particular day, and that in an abundance of caution and for the safety of all of our schools, Milford Police Department was providing an additional presence at all of our schools for a day. In September of '22, we had, and this was the one that it really shook me, and that's when I started talking to my team about we need to do something different at the elementary schools. In September '22, there was a decision made due to information shared with us during the treatment of a young teenage patient who was under the care of a mental health professional. That professional contacted us and the police. The patient was not a student in district but lived in Milford, and the mental health professional notified us that there was some threatening language and behavior that was targeting schools in Milford. At that time, we put police officers at all of our schools until we got more information. We actually ended up working with a federal agency, and the child was committed, and we continued some police presence at 2 of our elementary schools after further investigation, and that was in 2022. In May of '22, we had a situation at Foreign, and we received an ambiguous phone call threatening the school. And therefore, out of an abundance of caution, we increased, even at a school where there was an SRO already, we increased police presence. And this is in Milford, by the way, like our schools, not in Texas. In September '24, we put out a letter saying that there were multiple districts in Connecticut experiencing isolated incidents involving social media, referencing threats to schools. And it was popping everywhere in Connecticut. It was just popping. Like, there's another school getting a threat, and it was a social media thing. So we partnered with the police department and did an analysis as to what our next steps would be. Right after I sent that letter to the community, this is the kind of email I normally get from a parent when we put out one of those letters. I won't read the parent's name because I didn't get permission. Good afternoon, and it was sent to myself and the mayor. While I appreciate you giving parents a heads up, I also am wondering why our elementary schools are left unprotected with no police presence. Our children are at risk, and whether or not these threats are deemed hoaxes on social media, there are still people out there who can be silently planning an attack. And she references Georgia because it was right on the heels of the shooting in Georgia. And that is often a type of communication that Chief Mello and I get, and sometimes even board members, as to why isn't there more security at the elementary schools. In October of '24, there was a rumored threat about harming West Shore Middle School. In order to ensure safety and security, the police got involved. In January of '25, there was increased police activity in the neighborhood where Orange Avenue students attended. So at dismissal time, there was more police presence because of the police activity in the area. So the police department had to provide additional support there. On May 19th, '25, we sent out, Ms. Cianti sent out a letter to her families at Orchard Hills Elementary School that on social media there was a reported school incident of a person walking around the school perimeter on the sidewalk in the parking lot taking pictures. And so we increased police activity presence at Orchard Hills. I'm almost done. In May of '25, unfortunately, this nation experienced the school shooting at Robb Elementary School in Texas. And we put out a letter to try to calm our parents and reassure them that we're doing everything possible to keep our kids safe. 19 children and 2 adults were killed at that elementary school in Texas. And finally, this was a scary one this year. I remember exactly where we were when this happened, but Mr. Autieri, Mr. Brennan and I were all at a meeting at Orange Avenue School for a different reason. And we got notification immediately from the police department and Mr. Nielsen that there was a potential threat at an elementary school. So we immediately restricted activities, and this was like at drop-off. The worst time, because what happens at drop-off? Everybody's outside. And you have little control. So in October of 25, October 10th, we sent out a letter to our families saying that we had to restrict activities at all of our schools. We limited indoor activities only, no recess, and we didn't allow visitors in the building. We, within, I don't know, probably an hour or so of that time, we received notice that it was a non-credible threat. But I assure you, during that entire hour, every one of us, including Area Elementary School, thought there was a real threat to our schools. Nobody thought it was a hoax. We used every single safeguard we had. We locked it down. We told our greeters, don't you dare let anybody in. But there was a high level of fear that day. And that, for me, in October 25, just cinched the deal. That we had to go to the board and ask for more, another layer, an additional layer of safety and security at our elementary schools. So, thank you for allowing me to do that. So, we do have more outside activities at the elementary school. Kids are playing for a couple of hours a day. You don't usually find that at middle and high, so having an armed individual will be helpful. But basically during the vulnerability of our kids and staff being outdoors. And based on our current experience with SROs, we believe this is the right next step. So let's go to, when we had this conversation with the Board of Education, we dug into what research says about armed officers on campus. And I believe that we can find the data that we're looking for to support whatever stance we have on this. There is literature out there that supports armed school officers and literature out there that doesn't. And so I'm not going to argue which one is right or wrong. Whichever one you align with is one that you do. We do find some research out of the Averted School Violence Database. Although mass violence attacks at schools are statistically rare, right? They don't happen a lot, but they're devastating. And that's not their words, but their impact far exceeds their occurrences. You know, at a school, I don't remember a lot of fires. We don't have a lot of school fires. I can't remember the last one we had in Milford. But every month we do a fire drill. Every month the fire marshal shows up. We inspect all of our fire alarm sprinklers, but yet we haven't had a fire. But we still do that. So just one school shooting, for me, is too much. So another part from the Averted School Violence Database, I will read you this slide though. The number of completed attacks is far outnumbered by incidents in which an attack was planned or was almost carried out but was averted, thanks to the actions of persons in the school or in the community. Individually, these incidents may be dismissed or only have a short-term, localized impact because they did not achieve their goal. Because they did not meet the requirements for a school to document the incident, or because of underreporting in the media. While there have been a handful of studies conducted to identify common ways in which planned attacks were discovered, who intervened to prevent a likely attack, and the extent to which students reported potential planned attacks to authorities, there remains a considerable gap in the school violence literature surrounding averted attacks and what lessons can be learned from them regarding school safety and security. So in the world of research, there is a gap in the literature on, I don't know anyone who's gone to a jail and interviewed prisoners and asked, did you ever think about going to shoot up a school, but you didn't because you knew somebody with a gun was there? Like, that kind of research literature doesn't exist currently. But there is if you look for some examples, like at Dixon High School, a story where however you say that word, officer stopped a school shooting. So there are some examples. And the question I have is, if there is someone planning a school shooting in Milford, do we want to be an example that runs this headline, where we were able to stop it, or we didn't put somebody in place who could have stopped it? We have the power to write the headline by making your decision tonight. Well, not tonight, later. So, in the presentation Mr. Nielsen made to the Board of Education, he showed this slide. This comes from the U.S. Department of Justice. The average incident duration and response time. So the average, what's LE again?
Law enforcement.
Thank you. Law enforcement response time, based on 2024 data on active shooter incidents, was 1 minute 48 seconds. The average incident duration was 3 minutes 18 seconds. I did a little bit more digging beyond that research. And anybody could Google this. I'm no pro here. I'm an educator, not safety and security pro. So in 2025, depending on what resource you look at, there were 159 to 233 cases of school shootings in 1 year. If you look at the K-12 school shooting database, they recorded 233. If you look at Every Town for Gun Safety, they tracked 159 incidents of gunfire on school grounds, resulting in 53 deaths and 148 injuries. And the number of swatting, which we have dealt with also recently, there were 124 cases of swatting. So I also asked Google if they could provide me with response time and how long does an incident occur. And I'm grateful I don't have that experience to share with you, but according to Google, some incidents last a significant majority, 69% of incidents conclude within 5 minutes or less, with a substantial number ending in 2 minutes or less. Many active shooter incidents last on average around 12.5 to 19 minutes. The deadliest period of a school shooting is the first 10 minutes. According to this Google response, while incidents are often over in 5 minutes or less, the average law enforcement response time can be higher, with some reports citing 18 minutes. And interestingly, I asked Google, how do incidents end? Like, how do you take the bad guy down, basically? Incidents often end when the shooter is confronted by law enforcement, the shooter runs out of ammunition, the weapon malfunctions, or the shooter commits suicide. So, for me, if, let's say, the law enforcement response time in Milford is 1 minute 48 seconds, I think I heard Chief Mello say 3 to 5 minutes the other night. That, to me, equals a whole lot of people dead, possibly, in 1 minute 48 seconds or even 3 to 5 minutes, particularly since 69% of school shootings in 2025 were over under 5 minutes. So what would an armed school officer be like? He or she would be a retired former law enforcement officer. They would have extensive experience and skills. They'd be focused on safety and security, primarily deterring intruders with guns to come and kill people. That's #1 priority. They would be assigned to a specific school. They'd be employed by the school district. And they would be at each elementary school in the academy. I'm not going to read these next 2 slides, but these are all the qualifications that are found in federal and state statute on the individual we would be looking for. Please know that we would work with the Milford Police Department very, very closely to select these individuals. We would want their expert eye. We also would want someone who's good around 6-year-olds. You know, the SRO who's great around 16-year-olds may or may not be great around 6-year-olds. But the story we want is our 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds to go home and tell the story of how friendly and helpful this person has been. And really build the environment of this person is there to help us and keep us safe, not to scare kids, but to help them feel more comfortable in school. There is very specific training we would provide. There is annual armed school security officer training. We also would take a look at that training and see if there are any holes in that and provide additional training if necessary. We also would expand it by this long list of training, including de-escalation, active aggressor, youth mental health first aid, etc. So this slide concludes the part on armed school officers. Doesn't mean we have to stop that conversation, but I'm going to continue on with the rest of the budget. Of particular note in the budget, you should know that we did not fully fund our facilities and grounds needs. As Ms. Glennon mentioned, we're hoping that the Board of Education will adopt a long-range master plan for our facilities sometime this spring. We've hit pause for the second year in a row in these two areas because we believe that we do need to have a better informed investment in our facilities as we move forward. So hopefully we will be able to restart that starting next year. So in order to really make this a manageable budget coming forward to before the city, we really dug into line items. And if you take a look at year over the year compared to last year, we reduced line items the amount of $1.7 million. So while that may seem like a fiscal victory to some, my worry is this, that we are significantly deferring based on not only this proposed budget that's in front of you, but the last 3 proposed budgets that were before this city that sustained reductions the amount of $2.8 million cumulatively over the 3 years. So for 3 years, we, based on the proposal, received $2.8 million less. We've scaled back and not really proposed anything new in the area of academics. So my worry is, how many more years do we need to defer innovation? So we're deferring things like musical instruments and world language expansion and cool and necessary college and career pathways. In fact, we've been talking about when are we going to start pathways in middle school. That's been like in the conversation bucket for about 5 years now. Curriculum development, professional learning, our teacher in residence program, all reduced. Capital equipment, student desks and chairs, we're asking for multiple years now. Updated computers, all put on hold. And I know that you can't have it all. I know we have to prioritize and make tough decisions. But what is in the back of my mind is improvement and innovation builds over time. It doesn't happen, like I said at the beginning of this presentation, A plus B equals C. So it reminds me of what Peter Drucker said. Of the enterprise that does not innovate ages and declines, and in a period of rapid change, such as the present, the decline will be fast. So we just have to be careful how many more years or how much more we defer in the area of innovation in academics and teaching and learning. So this is a history of our budget requests over time. While at one time there were high budget requests in the late 2008, 2009, significant enrollment drops allowed us to reduce FTEs and therefore realize smaller budget increases. I'm worried about saying this, but 4.328, if you take a look at the region and across the state, is a little on the lower side of requests. We, for the first time in a long time, are seeing school districts ask for double-digit increases, or at least numbers that get really close to double digits. This chart supports the notion that our budget is made up of primarily salaries and budget benefits. You'll see other large items, including tuition, transportation, our driving costs there too. This is the same information, just in a chart by object code, representing how each object lays out and increases by object code. And then it'll just remind you that it's all based on the foundation of planning and strategic improvement. Mr. Moulton, we're happy to take questions.
Thank you, Dr. Catania. Thank you, Mrs. Glennon, for the initial remarks there. And as always, thank you for the presentation, it's really detailed. Very disturbing statistics when you're talking about school violence, school shootings. I'm not saying anything that nobody's ever heard, it's just a sad state of affairs we're in. All right, so questions, committee members. Who wants to start with questions? Anybody have anything off the top?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Kai, I just want to start by congratulating you on having set elementary schools as schools of distinction. Admittedly, I didn't know what that meant or what it implied. I had to Google it, and needless to say, I was very, very impressed. And thank you both for everything that you've done for the schools and for the kids. So I kind of want to dive right into the deep end of the pool and talk about the SSO program, if I may. Mr. Chair, you referenced the statistics, and Dr. Kataya, you mentioned the K-12 database reflecting 233 school shootings. I just want to note that that same database indicates that only 2% of school shootings pertain to elementary schools. So it's a much smaller fraction than what was just discussed. I was taking close note of the incidents, the specific threatening situations that you mentioned here, and going back, you indicated 7 examples going back to 2021, and if I took notes correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong. What I heard was a TikTok trend, a teenage patient already under care, an ambiguous phone call, a rumored threat, a person taking pictures, and a non-credible threat. Am I summarizing that somewhat accurately?
From what I remember, yeah.
Okay. In the armed SSO that you just presented here, you described the increased need to manage threatening situations. And the first 2 bullets were for students and parents and family. And I'm curious, what is implied by that? What is the increased threatening situations being posed by elementary students and parents and family?
So what we're seeing, I would say that the primary threat would be external. At the elementary school, we would see an uptick in children making threats.
Okay.
Whether it is in writing or verbally. In some cases, we've had to, which is under our jurisdiction, search backpacks and desks, see if the child had any type of weapon with them. In the world of adults, there's an escalated, I don't know what to call it, Mr. Ralph, it's like a lack of regulation when it comes to an escalated reaction to something that's happening at school. And we get calls from principals saying, or they directly call Mr. Nielsen or Captain Del Monte, who's our contact. Is there any way I can get a police officer here? You know, we're about to have this meeting, or just got off the phone with a parent. 2 weeks ago, we were notified by a state agency that a parent was going to court, and depending on the result of that court case, they recommended that we have police at the elementary school, because they thought the parent would make a beeline to the school and cause harm. So we had police there for 2 days. So the threats just seem to keep coming.
So in that situation, would the school security officer, like in other words, you get a threat like you just described, would Milford Police not be called, and like the expectation would be that that security officer would be,
They would be the first line
they
defense,
would be there as a deterrent or whatever.
Yes, a deterrent is a good word.
in that vein, given that, you know, we're talking about armed security guards, if they were unarmed, this question wouldn't need to be asked, but I have to ask it. Under what circumstances would an armed SSO be empowered to discharge a firearm in relation to a perceived threat from a student or parent?
Well, I think that comes in the training and qualifications, and I think that is a primary question for Chief Mello and Mr. Nielsen. You-
So the use
Mr.
of,
Moulton, I'm sorry, can I
the use of
engage
deadly
one of
force.
my team members?
that was involved in imminent threat to life, to any. That's the general basis of it.
Okay, so it'd have to be somebody themselves
Someone's that's
using
potentially going to
threatening
use deadly force against someone.
Okay. Is there a written use of force protocol covering the discharge of a firearm inside an elementary school or on elementary school grounds? Do we have something drafted? And if so, can that be provided to the board?
So I've collected several confidential documents from other partnering districts.
Okay.
So just off the top of my head, there are 8 districts that I've worked with to collect roles and responsibilities, MOUs between police departments and school districts in regards to training and different things like that, and also operation manuals that would spell out the roles and responsibilities and what they could do. And that would also be part of the training that they would receive from the police department through that annual training as well.
But we haven't developed one for ourselves yet.
No, we have very good plans from other people already
Okay.
that we're gonna blend to make work for our district, which will be also in partnership with the police department.
When is that scheduled to be completed by?
When we get approval for this.
Okay, so it's approval first and then protocol second would be the sequence?
Can I ask a follow-up question to Mr. Nielsen? How many surrounding towns, or let's just say even in the state of Connecticut, have the security officers at the elementary level?
So if we
General-
can just speak about, I'll go back to the number 8 for now. So the 8 that I've worked with closely, all of them have it. They're all their elementary schools.
Is it 8 that you're working with because that's all that's out there, or is it?
No, there's more. I mean, I
just contacts that you have?
I chair a Region 2 committee through Dennis for school safety and security. I voluntarily do that. So I work with a lot of my peers in that group, to whether it's superintendents, whether it's directors of security, whether it's chief operations officer in Orange. And we've got a lot of good documents from them, a lot of good feedback too about the programs. Some of them, you're looking at Newtown, Orange, Monroe, Oxford, Seymour, Derby, Sonia, North Branford. Some of these programs have been in place for 14 years. Some of them have been in place for 3 or 4 years. But the one message I get from all of them is that they wouldn't do anything different. These have been embraced into their school communities, they're part of their school culture, and they favor it. I mean, I've had people offer to come and speak at meetings for you, so that's how they feel about it.
In that vein, can I actually ask you about, so I think everybody is aware of the situation that happened in Torrington, where a school safety officer discharged a weapon inappropriately in an elementary school. And I'm curious, just what is your thought on that? How can that circumstance be mitigated?
I think that falls down to training. I think it falls down to the individuals. I don't know the circumstances to that, so I can't speak to it. And there's no information out there right now on that situation. But I think that, again, goes back to the slide that Dr. Katai showed. We're hiring a retired law enforcement officer in good standing. The minimum is 10 years. We're adding 5 years to that. Right, so we're adding 5 years to that. We're doing our hiring vetting process in partnership with the police department to make sure we get really good, responsible candidates. And then you pair that with the training that they're going to get from the Milford Police Department. I was a police officer for 20 years in Milford, so I know what that training is. And Chief Mello does a phenomenal job of making sure that the training is well kept up to date. It meets and exceeds state standards, so that would be the same for us.
Can I ask, in that vein, so there was news reporting by CT Insider pertaining to 10 school districts that had hired former police officers who had been, let me get the exact language here. I know you know what I'm saying, but let me make sure that I get the right language here. So they had hired armed security officers with records of misconduct, including those who resigned from the police force while under investigation. So it sounds to me like we have a more thorough vetting process in place than that.
Yes, so we're working on our vetting process now. We're gonna go a step beyond what I think most, if not all school districts probably do.
Okay.
We've been speaking with the police department in regards to who they use for their personality assessments, for their mental health evaluations. We're gonna look at that model, and we're also looking at a model where we have the applicant during the pre-employment offer to allow us access to their personality, law enforcement agencies they previously worked for. So in addition to making those phone calls and references, we want to see their personnel files.
Outstanding, thank you. Sorry, I forgot my water tonight, so. But thank you, it's fine. Mr. Nielsen, are you gonna be managing the SSOs on a daily basis? Is that, who will be the manager of this person?
I would have oversight to it. In addition to that, for span and control, I would have a lead security officer.
Okay.
I would also assist with that.
Is that part of the 10?
Yes.
The 10 that are being hired, the lead security officer?
Lead
Okay.
security officer would be a lead security officer and a floater
Okay.
available to fill during vacancies, because we want to make sure we keep those positions filled.
Who currently oversees the SROs? Is it the same,
SROs are, they're under the police
they're
department,
under PD?
so you have a chain of command over there. I liaison with them, so I work very closely with them, but they are under the supervision of the police department, so two separate entities.
Quick question. The other night Chief Mello said that I believe the costs were split for the SROs between the Board of Ed and the Police Department. Was there, I'm assuming it's financially better to have the SSOs
Yes, sir.
versus the SROs. What is the cost difference of, I mean, if we had police officers that worked 181 days a year as a SSO or SRO, and then they went back to the police department, the cost of the training, the uniforms, all that would already be taken care of. What's the cost difference there for something like that?
Well, now we do a split with the city.
Right,
For
so
that
if you continue to do that for these
So if you look,
additional
if we
10.
look at, I know Chief Mello had, I think, some approximations on the new contract, and I think the entry-level officer was $88,000 a year, and step 5, I think it's $99,900. Yes. So if you look at that, someone's gonna have to put up 50% of that, and the other one's gonna put 50% of that, so, the salary range for the SSOs would be in the low 40s, so you're looking at, the double payment there, basically.
Um,
It's gonna come from somewhere.
I'm wondering if we did it just for the 181 days a year, or do you split the cost for the whole year with the police department? Like for the SROs right now, are you splitting it 50-50 for the entire year?
We just have a
Flat.
flat rate that we pay,
Yeah,
and then the police department pays the rest, but it's the same bucket, right? It's the city
Right.
bucket, so what I don't, Chief Mello is not increasing his force, we're just adding additional security here, so.
I don't know if there might be a cost savings there, if you just, if he provided you 10 police officers for 181 days a year, and then
Well,
they
we-
went back to the police department, and you paid the cost for 181 days.
They need to go through all the training, though. You can't just take 10 police officers and put them in the schools, because they're required to have certain trainings to be in a school. So it's like
The
apples and
SSO.
oranges,
The
both
SSO.
of them, the SROs too, so
Right.
both of them. I mean, so it's kind of apples and oranges, the two different.
So we met with Chief Mello multiple times on this. We both agree that SRO is too much of a support in the elementary. It's a different role completely. Our SROs at the middle and high are dealing with crimes that involve our kids, unfortunately. That probably would be an overstaffed model if we recommended that for elementary.
And I
But
think
thank
too,
you for that.
I know the contract that they just received is obviously, there's a retention, recruitment and retention issue across the state of Connecticut. Most of us
Right.
probably heard on the news recently, right? The governor just proposed a bill to provide some education incentives, some mortgage incentives to people if they stay with the department for 5 years, whether it's police or fire, right? So I think too, there's a staffing challenge in that. We want to make sure we have a consistent presence at our buildings. It's going to be part of that school culture. Trying to avoid that revolving door piece.
Yeah, he did mention 13 Academy, which still has
So
7
that's
openings.
second,
Yeah. All right. Will will this SSO replace the greeters, or will you continue to have the greeters?
We'll continue to have the graders, because the graders are a layer of security security that we believe involves the screening for visitors. And this person, we don't see sitting at a desk or in an office. We see this person on foot, engaging on regular routine security checks, doors, windows, out perimeter walks, etc.
And I could probably just add to that for a second, most, those 8 districts again that I've spoken with, all of them have some type of staff member that does the front door access in addition to the guard.
What you were saying earlier, how, especially at the elementary level, students are outside more.
Yep.
With this individual at each elementary school, I mean, would they be outside at the entire time children are outside? Or is it like, like they're making their rounds and they're just kind of,
We would build a model based, again,
Create a
myself
schedule.
working with these other districts to have their plans in place to see what works best. Because again, they've gone through this for the past, minimum of 3-4 years, up to 13-14 years. So we see what works best for them. Obviously, we spend a lot of time outside. The points spoken about before with the arrival and dismissal times, whether it's traffic duty, whether it's monitoring, the front doors and students are coming into buildings, or exiting during the day, right? Or dismissal time and then that heavy time of recess time. So there's a lot of time where they can be supervising people to make sure they're safe.
We don't like to talk about some of our safety procedures in public, so that, we're not gonna say he's out there all the time, not all the time. Like,
sure,
it's just
yeah, understood.
the bad guys, bad guys find out.
No.
I think it's important too that, if I might, the elementary school principals have zero security support, so they're on their own. And, I'm thinking about when my kids who are adults now were in elementary school, and, I was very involved, I knew what the principals, what was on their plate. It's exponentially more responsibility for a principal now, so their attention is diverted. A school security officer, their sole responsibility would be for safety and security. And all the things that have just been mentioned, which now are partially the responsibility of the principal, maybe walking around, making sure doors are locked, things like that.
Or the custodian, or, yeah, right.
I mean, it's someone else that's dividing their attention to attend to these very important safety issues. So, principals have a lot more on their plate now than they did when my kids were in school.
So the SSOs, are they, okay, so salary and benefits, would they be considered union employees, or what bucket would they kind of fall into?
I don't see them as union employees.
We wouldn't be involved with that.
It's an uncertified.
They would be hired as
So non-certified,
Non-certified.
certified employees, and then that would be their status.
that's where they're, gotcha. And is there any, benefit, like, is there a phase-in that could possibly be done, instead of saying, okay, we're gonna put one at every elementary school, maybe you do, I'm just making up numbers, 3 in year 1, and they just kind of rotate throughout schools and slowly phase that in?
We entertained the model of doing 4 and 4, or 5 and 4, 5 and 5. And then we thought, well, how does that really achieve the goal if there's only part-time coverage? So Mr. Moulton, what we did was that's why we hit $1.7 million in deficiencies. We needed to offset what our goal was to put a guard into school. So that's why we did the heavy work in finding $1.7 million for it.
And, my opinion, I think, yeah, it's worthy, sadly, it's worthy. Like, what are kind of the cons to what's the other side of the coin? Like, we all know why, security-wide, it's important. What are people that say, hey, we don't want this in our elementary schools? Like, what's their argument against it?
Well, there is some fear. I mostly hear from people who support it, or after an incident, why don't we have, I read that email. What I've heard is, the whole notion of having a gun on an elementary campus around little people. There's that, I don't want, they're babies, and they're gonna have someone walking around with a gun all day long, right? And that in some ways normalizes and probably endangers childhood, right, in a weird way. So there is a level of discomfort possibly on the other side of the coin, of parents having someone there with a gun. So that's what I'm hearing from a very small group of people. Now, there might be people that feel, I know that one of our board members shared research in that having someone with a gun on campus actually increases fatalities. So I'm not familiar with that research in depth, but that's possibly also an argument. Anything to add?
No.
One more question for me anyway, so $10,000 is allocated for training, and I see that the training is fairly extensive, and there's 10 people that'll need to be trained. Is $10,000 a sufficient budget to cover all of these items for all SSOs being hired?
Yes, yes. Some of these trainings we do in partnership with like the Milford CERT team, for example. But if we're doing like a stop the bleed training or an Narcan training, in the district we have first aid, CPR, and AED trainers. So some of those costs we can offset with partnerships and the staff we have to do some trainings. And the other ones would be obviously, with the police department, and then, some of that money might come in where we have, are we paying our staff to do these trainings, or is it, I think, company time, so to speak, right?
And just to be clear, will all of the SSOs have all of this training before they start on day one?
Yes, that's our plan is.
Okay, thank you.
Even if it means a delay in start.
Okay.
So if day one comes and they're not ready, we're not putting them in until they're ready.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the SSO? I just have a couple questions. You mentioned state grants. Rough estimate, what do you see on the chopping block? Like, what are some, major concerns? Is there any, I guess everything's on the chopping block theoretically, right? But what would you see as a major, this is something we're really concerned about? And is there any concerns around state grants relative to one of the bigger increases in the budget, special education?
So in the world of education cost share, which is the state funding, Milford is considered one of the towns that's overfunded.
What is overfunded? There's another question I had. What do they mean?
That's a funny term, isn't it?
It's a little interesting.
It's a real
It's
complicated.
a real funny term. You wanna take what it is?
Yeah, so, those are funds that are provided to the city to offset some of the costs that educate students. So currently, we receive $9,672,593 or something like that, right along those lines.
Impressive.
We're gonna
Get
fact
fact
check
check
that.
And there is a phase out. And I think we're held harmless until fiscal year '28 currently. There has been on the books a phase out for some time. It's been delayed. So we should have received a phase out of those funds to reduce the amount of funds that we receive as a city for a number of years, and each year they keep delaying that implementation. Those funds do go to the city to help offset the cost of educating our students, but like Dr. Pataya said, there is a plan to reduce that because we're overfunded. It's a very complicated formula. It has to do with, it's like a weighted student count, how many students we have, that are identified with need, poverty level. There's like a number, it's a very large formula, and there's so many factors that go into it.
And based on that formula, we're supposed to get X, but we've been getting a little bit more. Hence, we're overfunded. There are cities, towns in the state of Connecticut that based on that formula are supposed to get X, but they get less. So the legislator's been trying to right that ship for a long time. But in order to do that, you have to take away from the people who've been getting, and those towns are crying out, as we should, right? Because what we need is more funding, not less. But the towns are underfunded, need the more. And so instead of raising the money completely and make everybody whole, they're gonna take away from the towns that are overfunded, which we've been delaying the implementation of that, but we've been given like a 3-year notice that in 2028, it's gonna hit us, and the reduction is,
I think it was like 124,000 or something like that, it was like low 100,000s for those.
So when you say take away, it's a, we're gonna give you 124,000 less?
Less.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like, okay, we gotta,
we're not being charged.
And-
It's on a phase schedule, like each year it would reduce a certain amount.
so we have 9,000,000,
673,523. 96.
Did anybody find that?
there's no pen, point. No rounding, we'll round them, I get it. Is that, so, that's not per, is that per year? We get that?
Yeah,
Okay, so that's per year,
plus his city.
okay.
Right, yeah, we don't see that.
So in other words, it's not like, I'm thinking of other grants, it's like, specific, and then it's just kind of like a rolling, okay, so 9 million per year. Gotcha.
In the world of special education, the excess cost grant is never fully funded. And then we usually get anywhere from 60 to like 72% reimbursement of students who exceed a certain threshold. Those students are mostly more involved students that have multiple areas of service. And so when you hit a certain threshold, you start to get reimbursed for what it costs to educate that child. And that reimbursement has never been 100%. It's always been 60 to 72. And we don't know what the number is until well into the year. Like January, February, we get, hey, we think it's going to be. So that grant, do we know this year's number?
It's 1.9, but there's a,
What's the percent?
72, the same as last year.
72%. So it'll cover 72% of the costs related to those students who have excessive need.
Big excessive needs, like 4.5%,
Correct.
Yeah.
greater than
Yes.
what we.
Than what we spend on typical children. So this would be primarily children who are on tuition outplaced, who receive services in district, multiple services, like they may be in a program with speech, with OT, with counseling, but you have to hit a certain threshold, 4.5 times that of a typical student.
Is that
4 times a time, so
4.5 times our per pupil expenditure per student.
what's the per pupil, it's like 26, 27,
Yeah.
so you're talking 100,000.
So our earmark is like 114,000 before we
Yeah.
get any, before we're eligible for reimbursement.
So without placement, costs come out to 113,000, we receive 0 reimbursement for that student.
So what we budget for is what we believe isn't going to come back to us. So, and that money goes straight to the city, and then we memo the city asking them for the money to come. We usually have a shortfall in that area. And then, if I may, since we're on grants on the federal level, I know you didn't ask, but we received some entitlement grants from the federal government, and with this current administration, there are regular threats of cutting those. And to date, we've been assured verbally that they're not gonna be reduced. But unofficially through the rumor mill, we've heard that possibly Title I and possibly IDEA will be reduced. That would create a crisis for us. We have about $600,000 in Title I.
What is that one, just educate me.
It is a federal grant that is based on our poverty level. So we receive money to engage in instructional practices. We primarily have salaries on there, so we fund additional supports. So if we were to get a reduction or a cut completely of Title I, that would be a reduction of a little over $500,000, and then I don't have IDEA number in my head.
1.5.
But that's just rumor mill, Mr. Milton. We've been assured verbally that that's not happening, but we don't know.
You know, along the lines of grants and edicts from the state or whatever, what do you got in the budget for unfunded mandates right now? And I heard the term right to read a couple times. Is that also, is that a mandate? Like
It is a
unfunded
mandate.
by the state?
And we've already implemented it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You wanna talk to it a little bit about that, Steve?
Sure, so last year was the first year that schools had to have a basically state-approved reading program, core reading program. We had gone through last year and did, you know, a pilot with our team, soft launch, had selected our program. The focus of the budget in terms of instructional supplies last year was to ensure that classrooms have the resources, including the tech sets for students, to be able to implement the program. This year, we're looking to sustain and kind of grow the work a little bit in the area of writing. So we're still building towards, when we talk about right to read, it's making sure there's opportunities for the foundational literacy, phonics in the early grades, but then also looking at comprehension, fluency as key skills as students come up through the grades. So now we're really digging into writing as a piece to support the work that students are doing in reading. So we're in compliance with the legislation and are looking within this budget to continue to grow that work.
How much does that cost? Like how much does that amount to in the budget, the right to read?
It is, there's particular items, I don't have a total in front of me.
That was primarily funded
Yeah.
in the current budget, right, Steve?
Correct.
The heavy lift was in this year.
If we had some additional resources,
Yeah.
it's not significant, it's not 100 million, it's
No,
a smaller amount.
No, one of the new is the digital,
yeah, we have a program in elementary called Project Read AI, and it's designed as kids are learning some of the early reading skills. Teachers can actually use the program to develop these texts that will help them practice the skills. So they can put in the specific needs of a student, and it will get them to a text that they can provide to the student that works directly on reinforcing those skills. The other one is at middle school and high school level, goes from grade 6 through 10, and it's called No Red Ink, and it supports the work that we're talking about with writing. So has the opportunity to provide students with immediate feedback as they're writing, whether it's the syntax, it's ways that they can continue to work on addressing the question specifically, and we believe that it will help our teachers be able to focus on coaching and supporting students in the classroom, and students get that feedback real time.
so the cost of Project AI, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, that's awesome. Sorry.
It's cool. Project Read AI is 15,000 and No Reading is 27,000. So we're over the hump on the expensive part, Mr. Moulton, on the right to read.
And as a matter of fact, you'll see reductions in many of the 6,000 accounts as a result of the purchases that we made last year for the Right to Read Act, that we did not need to purchase for this year.
Actually, so that's interesting when you say that. So what are the line items? It's a small line item really in the grand scheme of things, but I noticed that text adoptions are in decline every year. Is it related to this program that you just don't need to update textbooks?
Text adoptions are new texts that are being purchased for curriculum, like high school, you know, lots of different.
So Mr. Ralph, we have currently have a 7-year textbook curriculum revision process. And there is an element within one of those years where staff will look at the current instructional resources and determine if there's the need to go in a different direction or go to the next version of a resource. So the cost will fluctuate year after year. The other piece is a lot of text resources that augment curriculum now are 6-year resources. So you'll buy them and there's not necessarily a recurring cost. It's designed to be digital, so students have access electronically, and then you can reuse the licenses year after year after year.
And that's resulting in part of the reduced cost.
That's the reduced cost, so, and, you know, obviously, we firmly
The
believe
promise
that,
of technology.
right, that there are other resources out there other than a textbook that support student learning in the classroom, so that's, we take a look at all of that as we're designing new curriculum.
I appreciate that, thank you.
There are a lot of free resources available now online, so at one time your primary source was a textbook, and now we look at it a little differently when we're resourcing the classroom or new curriculum. We're looking at multiple resources, not just a single text.
Awesome, thank you.
Would that be possible with like opt out the Chromebooks or whatever? I mean, was that the gateway to be able to leverage this, or would it be independent of that?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about digital texts, the Chromebook is the key for students to be able to access those resources.
what's the cycle to replace those?
Well, it's changed in this cycle, in this budget, every 4 years, Mr. Chacolo?
Yes.
And I think we hit pause this year. This budget before you was hitting pause. It also represents a change, the budget in front of you. At one time, we were doing a one-to-one in all K-12, based on some feedback, and curriculum changes, particularly in the area of play. We are going to a grade level set of Chromebooks instead of a one-to-one at the kindergarten level.
What does the one-to-one mean? I don't-
Sorry, every child gets their own Chromebook.
Okay.
So we're rolling back on that in kindergarten. So
So
every
like the class
kindergartner
will
will
have
not.
like 20 or 15 Chromebooks
The
there.
grade level will likely have 20 to 30,
Yeah.
depending on how large that kindergarten is, so that each class could have a bank of 5 to 6.
Okay, but the student isn't responsible for any individual Chromebook?
Not in kindergarten.
Okay.
They're not getting their own device.
You'll learn to share.
We want them to play.
Actually, if I may, in this vein of conversation, so there were 12 deferred initiatives that were cited in your intro to the budget. And I noted that about a half a dozen of them related to technology. And I'm just curious, are we funding technology to an adequate degree? I mean, you gave some great examples, but on the whole, are we funding technology to the degree that we need to, given the rapid technological change in society more generally?
I appreciate you asking that, Ellen. So I worry about the deferral list. I'm always gonna be honest with you.
Elaborate, please. I had a few questions about that, so please.
So I worry that our teacher laptops are not being refreshed. Because I want teachers not to be frustrated with a device. Because they access so much online. So where teacher's manual used to be that big clunky one, now it's more efficient to have an online manual, but also there are hyperlinks that are clickable to other resources, so it's compounding in that regard. I'm not worried about the Chromebook refresh just yet. I think if we were to delay another year, then we'd be in a pickle. So I'm not, the network upgrade is
That's what I'm
worrisome to me.
yeah.
I think it's the second year that we've said no to Mr. Giampola. Things that are behind the wall are not flashy, but they have an impact on productivity. So that is worrisome to me. And something as simple as a pottery wheel music instrument, I know that's not technically technology, but it is, right? Like it's, we have dreams for our kids to access, and creative outlets, and I don't want to not expand the interest of a musician because we have delayed 3 years in a row some musical instruments. So while parents get their child an instrument, what we envision is having a fleet of instruments that are either on the larger side or more expensive or harder to get, so that our kids have access to some unique instrumental experiences. We haven't been able to realize that dream yet, because we're deferring in that area. Pottery wheels has been just a point of fun contention, like how many pottery wheels are we buying this year or not buying this year, and how many need power? We're constantly asking Mr. Bradbury, do we have enough power in the wall, because we're dealing with old buildings? And the wattage and the number of outlets in a 1970s classroom wasn't dreaming that we would have 5 to 6 pottery wheels sitting in a room, right? So I'm on the threshold of worry for some of these things.
Could you what is the, do you have a sense of the total cost of these initiatives? I mean, if you wanted to break it down by your most concerning line items, whatever, I'm just curious.
I'm gonna start with my concerning line items, and then I'll
Sure.
see if I can put a dollar figure on it. Should I like dream big right now, Mr. Ralph? Like, I'm trying to think of strategy.
put it
Should I
all-
go big here?
Put it all on
or
the table, let's hear
Be
it.
reserved, I'm not sure what strategy it is.
If not, now when?
Alright, so musical instruments, I just made my pitch, right? I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I'd really like to see us get student desks and chairs replaced in this district, cause you're like walking into a 1970s classroom, and there's nothing wrong with the 1970s, I really love that genre of music. But the way students interact and engage is so much more social than ever before, and do you know the desk I'm talking about that has the attached seat?
Yes.
And it's clunky and heavy? Alright, so you will, if you go into a high school room, and please let me know if you ever wanna visit, when kids wanna work with each other, they grab the front of their desk, and they go, woo, and they slide it across the floor, and now they've got, right, you guys can see that visual, it's just not conducive to the social-based learning that is human nature and is prevalent. Like the sitting in rows and being talked at doesn't align with our model for high quality instruction, it doesn't align with how humans learn best.
Before you move on, can I just pause you on that? So when I saw this as a deferred item, I assumed that part of the reason why we were deferring it was because the long-range facilities plan that we were investing in. Am I off base
No.
on that?
We still need new
Yeah.
Our teachers would love just a chair separate from a desk, let's just start with the basic. And desks that have little wheels on them so they could either be in triads or in groups of 4 or in rows. So it's not deferred because of the plan.
Okay.
It's the cost.
What would you say the cost is for the ballpark? I'm not gonna hold you to it.
For
Hundreds
scale
of thousands of
implementation,
dollars.
For desks and
Depends
chairs.
how.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars, yeah.
It's expensive, yeah.
And, because,
Because you want them to last 20 years. So you're not buying
You're not going to
you're not going to Home Depot or
right, right.
Walmart, yeah.
Yeah, office furniture, school furniture is expensive. Like something like desks and chairs and, laptops for the teachers and Chromebooks for the kids. Is that something that can be phased in? Or is it
Yes.
like, no, we gotta do it all
No,
or
no, we
nothing?
want it- We'd love to take a grade a year, actually. Or a department a year. Well, let's say we'll do all 6th grade English language arts. We'll do all 1st grade. We'll do all math classes. Actually, the high school math classes have been, every year they put in, we want, at least at law.
Mhm.
I'm not sure about foreign.
Actually, a phased-in approach is
Phased in, okay, so-
beneficial, so then the replacement cycle can now be something that we look at in the future and plan for.
So,
These desks and chairs last 25 years, and we know that this phased-in grade or department would be up for replacement in X number of years.
yeah, so you're constantly, maybe not so much desks and chairs, because they're a little more static and technology and desks and
Yes.
chairs, as far as I know, doesn't change all that much. But Chromebooks, laptops, like if you're in a perpetual, okay,
We do, we have that.
we're just gonna keep every year, we know built into the budget, we just have $1 built in for
Yes.
every single year.
Yeah, we usually run leases on the Chromebooks and laptops.
Gotcha. And just to interject with Damon and Dr. Katai about going through this list of bullet points, would it be beneficial? And then I don't know, Damon, if you were asking for Dr. Katai to give you a number for each bullet point,
I can get that
I'd
to you
love
in
to-
writing.
but maybe just to
Yeah,
facilitate the
absolutely.
dialogue, would it be easier for you guys just to say, hey,
Happy to
Well,
get that for
yeah,
you.
we'll
in
take it
writing. We'll
as a
send that to you and
takeaway.
you can forward it to
yeah,
the
this
board.
way we're not
Okay.
going line item by
Also
line
jump
item.
in with,
Good idea.
buildings and grounds projects are also something that we have deferred, and this year, particularly we've asked Mr. Bradbury for, he usually gives us a list of like priority 1, priority 2, priority
Is that in the
3.
book? I didn't-
It's not necessarily, I think
You gave it to us separately.
that's separately, yeah, so that's something I can provide to you as well too.
But this year's different.
This year is different, so we normally ask him to provide what his top 1, 2 priorities are for each school. This year, we asked for a level 0 priority, which is items that are absolute need based on safety, security, to keep our schools safe. So he had to take his list of top 10, which I'm sure he has top 1,000 for every school, narrow it down to the top 10, and then we've asked him to even further prioritize it by things that are absolute must need, like a level 0. So I would provide that to you as well.
Yeah, that's a great thing.
So buildings, grounds, those are all things that are in the deferred category as well.
Before we move off this conversation, one of the deferred initiatives that kind of stood out to me is the professional learning line item. There was a cut I saw of about a little short of $108,000. Could you just give some color around that? How is that going to affect our teachers' ability to
If I have Mr. Altieri answer, he might go on for a long time. Because we talk about this line item a lot. So, Mr. Altieri, all yours.
Yes. We have had to just, in terms of, there's multiple layers to it. First of all, as Dr. Kataya said, every year we start with zero, and we build our PL budget based on needs, new initiatives, new curriculum, and that's allowed us to be able to pull back on some things that we haven't necessarily needed to move forward. But in order for us to turn in a budget that we felt was fiscally responsible, we did have to make some reductions that stung a little bit, and that may have been reducing the number of days on a contract, or removal of, a particular initiative with professional learning. So, if we're utilizing some type of an outside vendor, we've dialed back the number of days, the number of hours that vendor is working with us. So there's, at the end of the day, Dr. Kataya said, we are a human capital organization. Our investment is putting into our people, and if we're dialing that number back, confidently I would say to you that yes, we're moving backwards with the amount of supports that we would provide to staff. So
Can I ask you to be a little bit more granular about that?
Sure.
And saying that, so I hear you're talking about the programs in general, but could you give some color to it? Like what specific types of professional development is being bypassed? Like what skills are teachers not getting?
So for instance, in the area of literacy, we continue to put a lot of effort into the elementary literacy with the right to read, the science of reading. We've worked with a couple of terrific professional learning consultants, and we have dialed back the number of days, number of hours that we're working on. For instance, grade 4 and 5 this year has been work around vocabulary development. Next year, we're pulling back some of that. In the terms of coaching, so we've done a lot with student-centered coaching and thinking about how when our coaches go in and they're looking at student practices and having conversations with teachers around planning for instruction, we've dialed back some of that work. So again, it is things that are directly correlated to student outcomes and supports for students. But those are just a couple of the examples that come to mind.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, past summers, we've done a summer literacy institute, which we have eliminated that moving forward, so we're not doing that for the third year.
Mr. Rob, we're a district that proudly invests in our teachers, and we're unapologetic about professional learning lines, because we believe in teacher capacity. The research bears out over and over that the number one factor that impacts a student's learning and improvement is the teacher in every classroom. So, if that's the number one factor that we can influence, then professional learning is the number one way to influence that, to continue to invest in our adults.
I would imagine too that it has an effect on morale
Oh,
for the
yeah.
teachers themselves, right?
Yeah. Absolutely, and that is the kind of stuff that keeps people employed in an organization. Yes, salaries may motivate, but people want to be part of something, they want to belong to something, and they want to feel supported. And professional learning opportunities is one way that they feel supported.
And we've had new staff share with us that one of the perks for them coming in from other districts is the quality and the level of professional learning that we offer to our educators is something that they hold near and dear as a perk to working in Milford.
An ongoing support, it's not a
Yeah.
checkbox, it's not, oh, you're done,
Yeah.
it's a continual work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for asking about that line, it's really important to us.
This was the page I spent the most time on, if I'm being honest with you. Just looking at the kind of lost opportunities, I guess, right? So, but anyway, I
But there's the
appreciate,
future,
I get
you'll
it.
see him again, I'm
I
sure.
know.
I'll
I appreciate this, you gotta balance that.
be
balance
much
out
more
priorities,
thoughtful
I
about that
understand.
list next year.
I have the re-implementation of the after-school program.
Mhm.
When did that end and why? And then what's
cost of?
So that was, as Dr. Kataya mentioned, that was part of our ARPA COVID monies. Last school year that we offered, that was the 23-24 school year. Was offered at both high schools. Just to give you a little bit of numbers on it, in terms of average daily student attendance, somewhere between about 10 to 30 students a day. And to give you like a grand scope of total involvement, at Foreign High School, just in second semester alone, we had 667 students. You know, it could be students accessing it over multiple days, but 667 different hits on the program. We see that as a way for two things. Opportunities for students to get additional academic support. And we also believe in being proactive with supporting students. So rather than waiting to the end of the year, course failure, summer school, students being able to get some support, recover credit during the school year while instruction is going on. So we see it as a program that would start near the end of the first quarter, going into second quarter. And we have budgeted about $30,000 total, and that will support educators to be present for, you know, working with students, but then also somebody who's in kind of a coordinator role in terms of scheduling the time and making sure that, you know, they are keeping track of attendance, that students are there, and communicating that with building leaders.
And there's a similar program that goes on during the day as well, right, for students that have free periods and whatnot. Is there something in that? I know in the high school there's something.
Yeah, there is a program during the day where staff are in the media center and will provide either literacy or numeracy supports that's scheduled into the teacher's daily schedule, and students can pop in during that time. But again, we want something that's gonna give more opportunities, be more widespread for students to have the interaction and the contact. We feel the after-school program does that for us.
What are the hours, what do you consider after school?
It's usually right at the end of the day, and you know, we haven't talked specifically about length of the day yet, but would imagine about an hour or so of time after school.
And the 30,000, is that, so you have to, am I understanding it right, you have to pay teachers to staff it? So
Correct.
it's, I don't know, overtime or something like that, but effectively, almost like a.
A
like
stipend.
It would be a stipend, they would submit a timesheet for the hours worked. We would split that 30,000 over the two high schools. And that's just based on projections from spending when we ran the program last.
Is there any opportunity to leverage something like the Boys and Girls Club to have those students, I guess the cost would be less than over there, and logistics around that probably not being cost savings.
I think having the certified staff is important.
Especially if you're talking about credit recovery, it has to come from certified.
Declining enrollment, every year we talk about that. With that said, in the budget, there was some hiring of some new teachers, with regards to, what was the reason behind hiring new teachers?
So usually that is elementary enrollment based, so we follow class size guidelines. We also are moving kindergarten class size guidelines from 20 to 18, so that just created a couple of teacher bump there. Sorry, I'm trying to get the page.
No, that's,
I think some of them were from last year,
Yeah, so,
like changes in funding source.
some are changes in funding source, some are changes. This FTE, proposed FTE changing sheet, doesn't necessarily represent new hires that are gonna go in for next year. So just like we do, we're very responsive to student enrollment, we're very responsive to student need. It changes, when we propose a budget, the course selection process does not happen until later in that year. So over the summer, if it's number of students are taking a certain class, you may need to add an additional instructor to cover those classes. In addition to that, at the elementary level, you have students that possibly move in, which would go over our class guidelines, and we would need to open an additional section. So what we do on this proposed staffing changes sheet, which I believe is the one you were referring to, on
Roman numeral 17.
yeah, I was just going by
Oh, okay.
your slide presentation.
stationary.
Oh,
which I
on
heard.
Roman numeral 17, it gives like a summary of that.
Mhm.
So what that does is it's our accounting of updating the accurate number of staff that we actually have in the system. So some of those changes may have already occurred at the beginning of this 25-26 school year, and some of them are actual additions or reductions for the upcoming 26-27 school year. But once again, it's based on student need, and if we have, say, section would be like 25 students in a particular elementary classroom, you might go beyond our staffing guidelines, you would open up an additional section, because that's what's right for students, and as a result, that would be reflected in this sheet. And that's just part of our normal process of being responsive. If you go the other way as well, if families leave, then we might reduce a section. So you may see a reduction in there as well. So it ebbs and flows as we go throughout the year, and we're responsive to student enrollment and student need.
Just a quick question, what is Parsons programs?
They're specialized programs, like some people at this table might be working at.
Okay, what's a Parsons program?
We're so certain. The Parsons Perks is one of them, right?
So it's perfect.
It's students with special needs that are outside of the high school age, and they are located based in Parsons. So our teachers are here, and they may not be here all day, but they may be out at work sites or at another high school. They're homeschooled, not homeschooled, but this is their home base.
Gotcha. Wasn't a trick question.
The line right above that, just because we're on this page, the academy.
I know what that is.
Thank goodness.
35 actual, 22 projected.
That number always increases, so the projection is always low, and the number that's in here actual, so October numbers are always lower. So, as the year goes on, we enroll more students into the program. I think last I checked in January, there were 41 students. There may be more.
I think I remember talking about this last year, it was like 119 is the max capacity. or something like that.
At one time, when I first got here, we had, I think, around 80 students. That's the largest number I've seen in my time.
There's 3 different programs though that operate out of the academy, so that's what we talked about last year. There's the high school, right, the high school program, and then the,
There's a specialized program,
Specialized.
for students with special needs, but then there's also the PM program that addresses students who may be in expulsion or need a little extra time for credit recovery. So that enrollment will be included is not necessarily included in this number. So this number is primarily our day kids. And it underrepresents the actual enrollment because it's a grab, that's an October 1st day, number.
I think, last couple of years, there's been a graduated class of 20,
22.
which is, has been, is large. Larger than we've had in past years for the senior graduating class.
Because I know we talked about this a little bit last year. Were we able to, are we able to, or is it in the book somewhere, articulate the cost to run the academy? Like the all-in cost, administrative, teachers, utility?
Yeah, I think last year we did run through this. So when you look at this program, whether this program existed at the actual academy, whether it existed in a different school, fundamentally, I think, the numbers look as a low impact, but also it's not counting for the impact of this actual program. So this program is a high impact program, and it's something that our students need. Those teachers would be needed to instruct those students wherever we place that program. When you look at the actual utility costs, gas, electric, all those things, they are relatively, and I don't have the numbers with me, but we did run numbers like that last year. It was very minor. I guess quote me, but I think it was something in the.
Can we get it for you?
We can get it for you.
Yeah.
But it was low, and it wasn't a large cost,
So if you were to
staff
pick up the
needs.
program and put it like in a wing of a high school,
You still need
you'd
that.
still have those costs, and FTEs are the highest cost. So you would be left with facility savings. You'd still need an administrator to run it, you'd save on a secretary, probably. So it would primarily be mostly operational.
So there's some tuck-in savings, but not a one-for-one.
And I would propose that you could possibly end up with either one, a higher dropout rate, or two, more costs and outplacements of students. So you may end up increasing your costs in the area of tuition, because kids are leaving comprehensive high school for a reason. And this provides a true alternative option. If a child is having difficulty in one of our high schools and we say, hey, we have this alternative option and it's in this hallway, I'm not sure that that is an answer that could be a lifeline for them. Hence, we're still committed to providing them an education. We'd likely go through a process of outplacing that child, and potentially, I'm doing a lot of guessing here, there's a potential of our costs increasing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What's driving that tuition increase now, that we're seeing?
Higher rates of students with special needs, mental health,
So there's an increased number of
autism.
children with
Yeah.
special needs.
That rate is increasing nationally.
I
We're
remember-
right at the Connecticut state, we're about 17.1%. 0.3.
17.4, yeah.
I remember last year we touched base on potentially increasing the program over at the academy so that there wasn't so much outplacement, and using those costs, those increased costs. Has there been any consideration about that?
So, yes, so we are considering increasing program period. I'm not sure about specifically at the academy.
Well, somewhere within,
Right.
keeping them in district rather than outsourcing.
Are you talking at the academy or are you talking special?
Special ed.
Special
Special ed.
needs, special
Our
needs.
Because
preference
that's
would be,
the thing, the real
Yeah.
spike.
Do you want me to?
Mr. Zenowitz is our new director of PPS, yes.
I can say we have had a significant savings by being able to have the academy this year for a number of students that if we did not have that option, would have been an outplacement at this time with a significant cost. I can say probably more than a handful right now. And even as most recent as today, the conversation came up and it was, we're fortunate to have the academy. If not, we had to go to another option that could cost anywhere from $125,000 to over $200,000. And that's the reality of it. And it's, as we said, as you mentioned, it's full. The number is full.
How about across the district, Mr. Zenowitz, so Mr. Zenowitz is in 7 months now? He's a true vet, right?
Yes.
So Mr. Zenowitz is doing an analysis of our in-district programming with hopes to grow our in-district programming, hence being able to bring some students
great.
back.
Right.
That's my ultimate goal.
Yeah, that's
Having
what we
that
touched base
happen
on
as
last
it
year,
is.
and I was just wondering,
that-
obviously, we're making some progress, so that's great.
So likely that would be an increase in FTE, right? So we'll hire more special ed teachers, the paraprofessional support, but we'll be bringing more kids back. And you probably put anywhere from, how many kids are usually in a program?
It depends on the type of program, the grade level, but you want the numbers small. You want the ratio.
How many are we outsourcing now? Do we know?
So they're outplaced.
Outplaced?
Yeah.
What's the number?
It's 55.
57,
So there's a difference between a
55 and
public
non-public,
outplacement and a private outplacement. I wanna say we're in this.
We have a number.
Yeah, 55 in the non-public line and 12 in the public.
Question,
line.
so what is the differential?
So the
Public
difference
versus
is,
private?
there's RESCs in the state of Connecticut, like a RESC would be.
Regional education
Regional
centers.
educational centers that run, and they're considered a public specialized program.
Okay.
So that could be like an ACES in this area, CES, there's some others that are further away. That is where we have a number of, I want to say 12 students right now.
Mhm.
And then the others is a private. Private is, an example we have here is Charles F. Hayden Boys and Girls Village, that's here, Milestones, Cedarhurst.
Privately run.
Privately run, but state approved
Okay,
for specialized instruction.
gotcha.
Thanks, Mr. Bolton, just to revisit your question from before. So as Mr. Zenowitz said, that, one outplaced student could be approximately between $100,000 and $200,000. The total cost that we ran last year, this is last year's numbers, for electricity, gas, water, contracted maintenance, repairs to grounds, repairs to buildings, repairs to equipment, preventative maintenance, miscellaneous other supplies, buildings and grounds projects, all of that together came to a total of $60,915 for the academy. So a very small cost when you compare those two pieces.
Well, is there, so we outplace students, is there an opportunity to in-place, like, in
That's
other
what
words?
he's, yeah,
That's
that's
what I
what
meant.
That's what we're talking about. I
So-
misunderstanding what.
Well, or even, not necessarily our own citizens, but like surrounding towns, to be able to say, hey, we have this program built up to a function level where
We
we
are,
can charge.
we are cautiously engaging in that dialogue internally, but there are a lot of things that come with that.
it's a big undertaking. And staffing has been, I mean, staffing's a challenge across the state for special ed.
Special ed.
And so you can create your own program, but then you have to staff it, and can you staff it as?
So there's possibly a revenue source there,
Yeah,
right?
that's,
There's a lot to consider, because now you're taking on the most needy and challenging students, right? And you're putting it in a school, you can't just create a school for all those kids, right? That would be inappropriate and unethical. So we have to just consider the impact of that.
Would you have to provide transportation? For the out,
We
people
wouldn't.
you
from
talking
Stratford coming
You're
in?
talking about our district kids or
The
our
home,
district?
the home district has to provide transportation,
Gotcha.
which is another big cost. I think the state is realizing that those costs are unregulated. And I think, their first step is usually to put together a task force, which they are.
Well, last year, didn't Governor Lamont veto like a $40 million bill to help support special ed? I thought that we had talked about that.
They put an additional 40 million into the pot of money for the excess cost grant.
Oh, they did?
Yes.
They funded.
And that is
Okay.
still in place for this current year
And
as
that
well.
resulted in how much for us?
300, about $300,000, yes.
We'll take it.
just speaking about transportation, I know last year the bus contract was a hot topic. Where in the budget, so last year we had what was it, like a $1.4 million one-time charge, or was that a phase-in?
So that was a one-time first year.
Of a new contract.
We're actually, this year, it's on page Roman numeral 14. We actually have a decrease in that account this year, about 6%, just under 6%. So, yeah, so one of the things that we did was we found some efficiencies and we eliminated a couple buses needed, just based on looking at our routes, looking at our bus stops, looking at location of students. So we were able to eliminate 2 bus runs and actually found a savings in that account.
Well, I noticed that,
Roman numeral 14?
it's funny, because I noticed last year we had 4,097 students, page 28. But this is my note from last year, 4,097 students via full-size buses. This year it's down to 3,700, so we had 300 fewer, almost 400 fewer students that we're providing transportation for.
Is comparing it to
Seems
last
off.
year's
Yeah,
number.
I'm looking at last year. Well,
Yeah.
it's literally the exact same sentence, just a different number. Last year we had 4,097 students we provided busing for. This year it's 3,700.
That feels off.
If there's, I could double check. the
Yeah,
numbers here.
it's
What is this year's page number?
28, and last year would have been 26. 5,000 series.
We have a couple things to get back to you on, so we'll add that.
And where were you, Sean, explaining the,
On Roman numeral, page 14?
Transportation.
okay, so I'm looking really at page 25, the transportation number in total. guess in my head, I would have expected to see a bump of about $1.4 million.
We have special ed in there, on page 25.
Yeah,
And
Special
looking at
ed
the
is
bottom
up.
line, the very bottom line of
Yeah.
that.
I'm looking at the bottom line, I'm trying to just reconcile where that 1.4 million is illustrated in the budget. So, and really it would be for 25, 26 adopted, like in my simple head, I would have thought that on page 25 under total, I would have seen 1.4 million added to this.
So the 1.4 million was the first year bump in the contract. It was a higher bump the first year because it was a new
And the
contract.
second year
So
was
then
what?
now,
Second year
years
was
2
4%.
through 4, it's a smaller bump.
Right, but
Yeah.
then,
So it
that
doesn't go to
was
zero.
added to the accepted budget, so you're bouncing off of a higher,
Right, but it doesn't go from 1.4 increase to 0 increase, it goes, what was the percentage
So
in the
we
first year,
had, it was
20%?
19.75% on the first year, and then for the following 4 years, it's a 4% increase each one of the successive years.
So 1.4 spread over those
And
years.
that's for the top
Or
line.
1.4 is year one.
19.75% increase year one, which is the year that are in right now. For this upcoming year, it's a 4% increase on our rates. The following year, a 4% increase. Next year, 4% increase off of the previous year. 4%
So
increase.
it's a 4-year
each year.
contract,
Right, right.
5-year.
each
I
5-year
guess I'm just
contract.
not reconciling
And that's just for
the-
regular ed.
the 20%. Well, regular, and I'm, again, maybe I'm looking at the wrong spot, and someone just needs to shake me up here. But page 25, regular, the top line number there, 2.6 million. Then we adopted 3 million, and this year we're going down to 2.8, like, did we create did we create so many efficiencies that it absorbed that $1.4 million one-time charge?
No. So the efficiencies we created offset that cost, reduced it by, I think it was like, I'll get you the number, it was like, I think 300,000 or so of a reduction. So I think what you're looking at is expended versus adopted there.
Yeah.
So that 24-25 is actual expended dollar amount.
Maybe I'll go back and look at the proposed last year and just see if maybe that's where I'm missing that.
So what's your question so we can better?
I'm just
get
trying to, I'm not seeing that 1.4
Okay.
in the mix here. And it just could be my own lack of
the thing is,
knowledge of exactly where the accounting is. I'm just not seeing it. I'm sure it's in here, I'm just not.
So it's not all in that regular ed line. So when we think of transportation that Durham provides, it's not all in that one regular ed line. It also comes in some of these other lines below. So you're looking at Trumbull ROAG as well, Bridgeport Aquaculture, field trips, some of our internal special ed
Athletics.
transportation, athletics. So when you're thinking of that 1.4, it's not tied to that 5,100 account specifically. It's spread throughout many accounts within the 5,000 series.
But not special ed.
For some internal special ed, it
But
is.
not external or the.
Not external, not the.
So why wouldn't it tie down at that total number at the bottom then? Like if it's spread throughout different 5,100, field trips.
Because like
total by-
special ed aid and van driver that if it's in there doesn't come into play, right? 5109, 5111 is not part of that. Supplies aren't part of that. Gasoline is not part of that.
Yeah. And those were projected, increase. I think 1.4 million, if that was the number 1.3. That also anticipated special ed costs in there as well too, which are things that we've gone out to bid for over the summertime, so those may have come in at a lower, just to your point. Some of those special ed bids may have come in at a lower, but those were not tied to the Durham itself.
Yeah, and I don't want to slow down progress here, so maybe I can try to better articulate the question and pose it to you guys, because I'm just not seeing, in my mind, I would have seen 1.4 million higher, like a spike in here somewhere.
Sure.
And it's almost the opposite, so that's, and again, I could just be missing it. So I'll try to articulate my question better and email it to you as well, so we can move on.
Great.
I was thinking the same thing.
Are you thinking the same thing? So I'm not, that's
No, I was trying to find one
We both
before, but I
agree.
was looking at it for the total.
what I was looking at.
I wasn't looking at it just at 5,100, I was trying to figure out where that 1.4 was spread out through all the accounts there.
crazy to get,
Yeah, we'll be crazy to go.
Good company.
instead of all these email account, it's just as crazy to get. All right, so that'll be a follow-up. Thank you, sorry.
Absolutely. And that's a 5-year contract
Correct.
with last year's 24, 25 was the first year.
This year, 25, 26, like 0.
So you guys are gonna check on why there was such a differential between last year's, we got over 4,000,
Yes.
this year 3,700. Thank you.
Does the Board of Ed and the city negotiate their insurance together or separately, or health insurance?
Together.
They do it all together?
Yeah.
Oh.
Could you talk to us about because obviously the big increases on both the over 65 insurance and also property and liability. Can you just talk about what your methodology is for, do we bid out for that insurance? What was could you just give the color around it?
Yeah, so we work with, for the over 65 insurance, we are with the city on this as well. So we work with a consultant, same consultant for the city and the Board of Ed. So really a couple of things are really driving this increase, based on claim experience and actual loss ratio that we have in this population. Specifically to our over 65 population, a lot of the different items in these legacy plans that are covered right now are things that have been in contracts from long before any of us were in this role, back when healthcare costs weren't at the high premium that they are today. So still as a result, when people retire under certain contractual obligations, we're still required to provide those different coverages to them. This population in particular is an aging population. So it's not a population where an insurance company would result or see some kind of savings by a new, younger group that would offset aging population costs. So our population of retirees is aging. The number of claims, the actual experience that we're receiving is increasing. You couple that with nationally what we have with healthcare costs and the amount of money it's costing to actually provide these coverages to the individuals, it's something that we are seeing significant increases in.
I would imagine the number of insured is increasing as people are living longer, right?
People are living longer and more people go on to that plan, and we pay that plan until the duration of their life.
So obviously that's a formula that at some point in the future explodes, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not 5 years from now or whatever, right? Is there an outlook on that? When is the crisis moment for how many people we have insured versus how many people we have working in the system?
Yeah, it's something that we certainly take into considerations when we're looking at contract negotiations, but unfortunately, those are the kinds of things that would take years to phase out. So I'm sure you can imagine through contract negotiations, if it's a benefit that that group would have, they'd be very reluctant to give it up.
Of course.
So it would be something that would have to be transitioned over many years in the future. So things that we are currently negotiating are, people in the future will see an impact on that as a result.
Sean? I think an important note to that statement of foreseeing the crisis in the future, I think there could be an argument made that we potentially could be in the highest cost of this line item right now, because teachers hired prior to 1986 did not have to pay into Medicare. So there's many people that in this oversized 65 population that are currently on healthcare plans that they retired on that are not available in the current market. So that's at a premium as well. Moving forward, and as they retire, if retirement benefits stay in the contract, all teachers or anyone who retires will be paying into Medicare. So you won't see the $1, $2 copays that are still in existence that just aren't comparable, and there's no way for another company to see that as a profitable business to make that plan to keep these people to have their benefits. So as those plans phase out, potentially the increase might not be as much year to year.
Okay,
And as we're
that's
working-
optimistic, I like it.
Well, I mean, it's-
Yeah, no, it's good, thank you. Is that?
And as we work with the contracts as well, so all those things are in consideration.
Great, thank you. That's great information. I have another boring question, actually. Electricity costs, you had mentioned it touched on it very briefly in the intro. I had a note here in my notes that they're projected to increase by 19%, but now I can't find it in the budget itself.
That's accurate.
Is it, Emma? All right, good. You had said that you wanted to touch on that later. Do you want to speak to it now?
I'm gonna pitch it over to Mr. Brennan if that's
Sure.
okay.
Yeah, so there are, I think the page that you would have been referring to would have been Roman numeral 8. So there are two main costs that are associated with electricity. One of them is the commodity itself, and the second is on the transmission of the electricity. What we are finding is that those costs are significantly with the transmission of the actual electricity. So there is aging infrastructure that these electric companies have with bringing the electricity to different buildings and facilities, and as a result, those costs are being pushed on to the actual end user. So the commodity is, did I say?
We'll do Roman numerals tomorrow.
All
Don't
right.
worry. It's 13.
Yeah, 13, that's what I said.
He can do regular numbers better than Roman, I assure you.
It looked like a V. I apologize.
Oh, good.
So on 13, yeah, so the main cost of this increase is that transmission piece of it. It is something that, we are constantly watching and working with the companies, but it is something we are actually seeing as an increase. And there's also the public benefit component of the bills that I'm sure we see in our own personal electricity bills as well.
Yeah.
That is causing an increase in that line item.
Have we ever considered any alternative energy options, solar?
Yes, we actually have a number of those right now, so all of our schools outside of Harborside have some sort of solar on their buildings.
That's good.
We also utilize the city wastewater treatment to offset the electricity that we use at Foreign High School. So that Beaverbrook fuel cell wastewater treatment plant offsets a lot of the cost of the electricity for Foreign High School, which is our largest user of electricity. And then we also have a microgrid generator here at Parsons, which is supplies energy to Parsons, Harborside, Senior Center.
What is that? What is the fuel source for that? Is it natural gas or?
Yeah, it's called a microgrid fuel cell, so I think it's some kind of, and I'm not an energy specialist.
Some
but
type of
it's
microgrid
like,
fuel.
some kind of like, yeah,
That's a
it's,
public works question.
Is it like a specific blend of something?
yeah,
We'll all pretend like we don't know.
yeah.
You would know that.
Chris Saley would know that.
Chris Saley, that would be a good one for that.
Interesting. Are you guys looking at expanding on that, on those ideas, or?
We always look at ways to offset cost of electricity. There is a limited amount of real estate that we have on each of our buildings, so there's only so much solar panels or solar arrays that we can get up there. When you start thinking about some of the rooftop equipment that we have, that has to work with all the HVAC within our buildings. So I wouldn't say that solar could offset those costs 100%, but it is something that we constantly explore and look at, green initiatives and things of that nature.
Thank you.
Building new, highly energy efficient buildings would help too.
Yeah.
What, on page 18, not Roman numeral 8.
Good, I'll be able to find it. I'll be able to find it.
There's your toes 18.
Perfect.
Electricity, heat, and on page 19, we're talking about water and sewer. The last item there, central admin. How big is central admin?
Those would be our costs there at Parsons.
I'm just curious, like, why would those costs, like, how big of a space is central admin? Because if you look at the electricity costs and heat costs, they're consistent with, like, some of these elementary schools, which in my head are pretty big buildings, and then, like, the water and sewer costs, like 2 or 3 times some of the elementary schools. Like, you guys just running the tap all day long.
You just pay the bill, right? I think
Or is
that's-
that, yeah, is there like an extra, I'm just curious, like, why a smaller space would have a similar or greater
We'd have to
cost?
ask the mayor about that.
Yeah,
We're
we
being
re-
overcharged.
Peter
received-
pushing some of the finance.
These are great questions, no. We receive a bill for our portion of our use of this building, so.
So it helps to offset the city's electricity.
Alright, so you guys just aren't keeping it real warm or real cold when
We wish, I don't think we
Yeah,
have no
sure.
control
it's
over it.
150 degrees in here, so. It's on.
The window open. Bring all that heat out.
Other questions?
Yeah, they could. Do you? Esports, or the bonding that we've done. $2 million last year for esports. There's
1
gonna be,
million.
what's that?
1 million.
Thought it was 2.
Not one,
2 million in total though, wasn't it?
nope, one.
Just 1 million?
1,500,000 each school.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
There was only 1? Okay. Okay. Could any of that be leveraged to do the electronic infrastructure? You know, improve the network, I got the impression when we approved it, it wasn't a whole lot, didn't see a real detailed plan, but it was like, okay, here's a chunk of money. And I thought it was a good idea because it seems to be the future and is a way to attract, young people. But one of your big things is network upgrades. Seems like it dovetails. Could you, the board of Ed said, this is what we want to do. So you could modify it to tie it into that?
We certainly are going to use the technology that we get for that space in a dual fashion to the degree we can. So we imagine using that space during the day even for instructional academic purposes. So some of the technology that we buy for the esports competitive team will be a double usage for students to access during the day. Specific to that network, I'd have to talk to Mr. Giancola as to whether that would be allowable under the project.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, you kind of made up the project, so remake it up.
well, a lot of those costs would go specifically to those areas that we would be changing what that actual space would look like.
So they're mostly construction costs, not technology, computers, servers,
There are
wires.
some of those costs as well too, but there are some room reconfiguration type costs that go associated with that. When you look at a network server,
Can you talk a little bit about the type of network server that is on deferral?
Yeah, so what's on deferral is some of our network infrastructure, which is in the, so we have closets in all our buildings. There's probably, you to look at raw, there's I think 6 different closets that all the wires go back to. And then they all go back to a central place. So to replace that stack of switches that are in that, that's where you'd be doing that. If the esports arena happens to be in that area, maybe we can, rerun some of the wires. But remember, the internet's around here, we put this infrastructure in place probably 30 years ago. Even before I started. So some of those wires are 30 years old, and you just can't get the speed that you can now over those wires.
So that's the upgrade to the network, replace the wires.
Correct.
So it wouldn't, if you're gonna have an esports thing, don't you need those wires anyway?
We would upgrade those wires for that particular area of the building.
With that money.
With that money.
But what's being deferred, is it particularly law and foreign specific, or is it other schools?
It's all of our schools. It's not just law and foreign, it's also,
So to answer your question though, Mr. Arnold, if the upgrades are specific to law and foreign, then there would be the possibility of utilizing that money to upgrade those networks. That would be a fair use of that money. We also don't want to misrepresent to the community, you approved money for 2 schools, and now we're gonna use it at Orchard Hills. So
Gotcha.
I think as appropriate at those 2 high schools, then the answer would be yes.
Okay.
I like that.
questions from anybody on the board here? All right, hearing none, I just want to thank everybody for their time. Thank you for indulging the committee. You know, recognize the fact that you guys live in schools, you guys spend an enormous amount of time and energy in these budgets, and to a large extent, we're just trying to understand everything. So thanks for understanding the questions and for the follow-ups here. And thank you for your time.
We'll get answers to you, and you could then disseminate.
Yes, that'd be great.
Thank you.
So I'll entertain a motion to recess till Monday,
You gotta let one,
23rd.
Motion to recess till Monday the 23rd.
you gotta say something tonight.
Lauren, welcome to the meeting.
They asked all my questions.
But, we'll reconvene at 5:30 for a regular scheduled meeting, and we'll roll right into our budget deliberations. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you all.